All right, everybody, we're back with another Creator of the Day live video interview. I have Alice here. Sorry for the delay. I know a few people were waiting on this to go live. We had some technical difficulties, but we're here now. Everything's good. So, Alice, tell everybody a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm one of the co-hosts of Two Girls, One Mic, the Porncast, where we review the holes and the plot holes of your favorite porn.
Okay, so what you've released? How many episodes now?
It's three, so we're off to a great start. But yeah, only three episodes at the moment.
Okay, and what have you talked about in those episodes? What are those first three about?
So the first one is we look at Deep Throat. Which is a classic. Everybody knows Deep Throat. If you don't, you're probably not American. So I'm kidding. This and we actually also not only discuss and review that podcast, not only we discuss and review that porn, but we also talk about a little bit of the history behind that most people wouldn't be aware of. So a lot of actually, some people were even jailed for that specific movie, and it had some interesting court precedences. Um, so the second episode, we talked to Ella Darling, who she is kind of the queen of VR cam pornography. She essentially launched that entire field a few years back. So we had a fun conversation with her, all the technical difficulties that arise from teledildonics and VR porn camming, and a couple other fun things. And our most recent episode is we're reviewing another classic called Not the Wizard of Oz, Triple X. As you can guess, it's not the Wizard of Oz. It has porn. So
What is teledildonics?
uh, so the field of teledildonics, that's a field where you can actually control and stimulate someone wirelessly over long distances. So essentially, like if I had a dildo and you had the controller, that's teledildonics, where you can, stimulate someone, over a range and network, which gets really, really interesting because I'm looking forward to the day where I have to call customer service and say, "Hey, there's a lag time with my dildo that shouldn't be happening right now," and they tell me to turn it off and on again. So that's gonna be great.
So, so what made you want to start this? So it's you and your co-host, right? Why venture into this? What made you want to start it to begin with, this podcast?
So we've wanted to do a podcast for a while now. But the challenge is, and as all podcasters will tell you, is that finding a topic that not only are you comfortable and excited to talk about, but also one that makes you stand out. And my co-host, Yvette, she's known as SciBabe publicly, and a lot of people have been encouraging her for years to do a science podcast. But if you listen to all of them, there's not really anything that differentiates. For me, I've kind of always wanted to do a podcast, but I could never figure out what was the right topic. Um, and a couple of weeks ago, we were just, and I'm not even kidding when I say this was a couple of weeks ago, that we were talking about, I think it was the Academy Awards, and we were discussing all the nominees, and we were just dissecting the movies. And I said, oh, well, there has to be something similar that they do for the AVN Awards, for the porn awards. And then we realized that we have a mutual, I mean, she and I are both dirty, so we both watch a ton of porn. We're both very open about it. And yeah, we realized, wait, there has to be someone reviewing this stuff. And then when we realized no one's reviewing porn like via podcast, we kind of realized, oh, well, we have a niche here that needs to be filled. And we wanted to present it not in a, hey, we have, and because as our listeners will know, sometimes we do have humor of like two 12-year-old boys. But that said, we wanted to bring the content to our audience in a smart, funny way, also semi-educational, um, where, we're not just talking about, oh, and this is how he stuck it in, or this time.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned that, and I noticed the same thing after just doing some research before we started talking. There aren't a lot of podcasts about this. Why do you think that is? I mean, there's podcasts about everything, but this particular
Yeah.
topic, do you think it's just people aren't comfortable putting their name or face behind it, or I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. The problem is with when it comes to porn and adult topics, like pornography, erotica. That's number one. People don't want to jeopardize their careers, which is unfortunate, but it is a reality we live in. So that's the first part. Both of us, running our own businesses and our own ventures, it definitely helps that we're able to speak a little bit more freely on this without having our careers jeopardized. That's number one. Number two, I feel like a lot of people are just really uncomfortable speaking about these types of topics, unfortunately. It's something that we all participate in. We say on the podcast that, 90% of people admit to watching porn, which is an actual statistic, and the other 10% are liars. Because everybody watches porn. It's just one of those things that I know that living in America, if we see a tit on cable television, people start freaking out, which shouldn't be the case. We all have the same parts and bits, and we all participate in this. The fact is, that if we don't talk about it, that's how things become taboo. If we do talk about it and try bringing it into the mainstream, people just get more comfortable. And, when you can get more comfortable speaking honestly about a topic, you can be more well-informed on it, it's the antithesis to, people who are like, put my hands over my ears and teach abstinence only, and let's not talk to our kids, and let's just hope that, they don't screw around and end up with a baby. It's the total opposite of that, which, the more educated you are on a topic, the better you'll be. And the more well off we feel the average person is going to be in the long term. And what's great is actually, since we've started the podcast, and since I've been telling people, hey, I have a porn podcast, I've had a lot of people come up to me and say everything from, oh, by the way, I know that, we've been friends for years, but, I never told you this, but I've been a cam model, or I've been a dominatrix, or even a financial dominatrix. I've had even close relatives come and say this to me, which blew my mind. Because again, we all participate in this community, whether by watching it or being active in it. But people are just so excited and they want to talk to you about these things. A lot of people are just uncomfortable, because I don't know. It's sex, it's porn, it's nudity. It's dirty bits and parts.
So, yeah, and I love the educational aspect of it and getting people talking about something like this. So, what's been the reaction from listeners so far? I know that you recently shared on Facebook that you guys have seen tremendous growth. There seems to be a lot of traction, a lot of people listening to this. So, are people reaching out to you? Are your listeners what has their reaction been so far?
Super, super positive. We actually were overwhelmed with how positive this was from the get-go. When we launched, we actually even reached in Canada on Canadian comedy podcasts, we were number 93, and on their charts, and in America we were 113, which we were kind of blown away by.
That's huge for only 3 episodes. You only had 2 at the time. You just released this most
2.
recent one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what would you attribute that growth to? Do you think it's, I know that both of you, both of the co-hosts on the show, you and Yvette, have, pretty significant followings. It doesn't seem like, you've posted it everywhere on, all your different social channels, because it's not necessarily relevant to everything that you guys do. Yeah. You have a lot of other things going on, which we can talk about in a second, but what would you attribute that growth to?
A handful of things. So number one, we definitely had a great marketing strategy going forward, going into this. When I actually, so this is going back a couple of weeks for when we initially first had the idea for the podcast. So most people who start podcasts will tell you, you'll have to get, if you've never done it before, you'll need your equipment, you'll need a hosting service, you'll need a website, you're going to need, possibly like an intro or custom music. You're going to need to possibly script an episode, figuring out your marketing plan, how you're going to get on all of these different platforms like your Spotify, your iTunes, your Google Play, and going through that process, which I mean, some people have told me that could take like a month to 3 months, and that's making the assumption that, you kind of like take your time. So within a day of us having this idea for the podcast, I texted a handful of friends, some of which have large podcasts, and at first their reaction was, "Wait, is this real? Because you need to do this." And then a couple of them were like, "Well, I'm having like my 400th episode. You guys need to plug it." Or if you're going to be out in LA next week, you need to be on my, podcast, which gets over 200,000 downloads an episode. And I'm like, "Oh, okay. We have to get our shit together. I have a week and a half," which literally that's all we had, a week and a half since the concept of the idea to when I started going on actual shows to start promoting and plugging it, was to do all of that work I just mentioned. So wow, we really busted our asses, and but we got it all together. We definitely, having Yvette being in science communication and me with, my social media marketing platforms, we both had some followings and we have both had a lot of connections. So we kind of tapped into some of our friends and said, "Hey, we're launching a podcast. When on the day of launch, can you kind of like retweet us? It would help us a ton." Our own audiences were super receptive. I know on Yvette's audience, like, I mean, they've been primed for this. She has she promotes science with healthy, dirty jokes along with it. So her having that platform for like 4 or 5 years of giving people accessible science information with a side of dirty jokes has just been perfect. And then with me and my audiences, they've kind of expected it from us. So, which is also, again, why we had such overwhelmingly great reactions to this podcast, because our audiences kind of know that we're two dirty women to begin with. So their expectations, I don't want to say were low, but they were there.
So you do this on a weekly basis, is that right?
Yeah. So originally our goal was to do one episode every 2 weeks, but because people have been so excited and we've been getting so many emails, we're kind of now doing one episode a week. So I'm watching a lot more porn. It's been very challenging.
It's part of your job now. You have to. You don't have a choice.
And it's really weird because I have to tell people, they're like, "Oh, well, what are you doing on a Friday night?" It's like, well, I actually have to watch porn. And I have to explain, no, it's for work. You don't understand. I'm taking one for the team. You don't understand the stuff I'm watching. I've been watching a porn last night where, I kid you not, you have, there's a fantastic scene where a woman is having sex with a life-size box of cream of wheat while a piece of toast is playing a saxophone in the background. So the things I do for you people.
Okay. So you what are your plans for future episodes? Is that something that particular one, is that one that you would like to review as part of an episode? Are you focused mostly on more popular videos? Do you maybe want to bring on celebrities or guests in the industry to come on and talk? Is it more of a variety show? What are your plans?
So our plans for formatting, so I'm fairly confident that after 10, 15 episodes, it'll just hammer out naturally. But at the moment, how it's been working is we're going to have our episodes where we just review a porn. And we've been attempting to ease our audience in with stuff that you're probably going to know. So, for example, like we're going to do FAP to the future, and we're going to do Jurassic Bone. And, the Rick and Morty porn, because that exists. I don't know why it exists, but it exists. There's a lot of things I don't know why it exists, but Rule 34, I guess. So we definitely want to ease our audience in. That's why we began with Deep Throat, and we began with The Wizard of Oz, because you'd have to live on a rock to not know of either of those two. But we're also going to have guests, and we have some fantastic guests coming up. So, just a little bit of a teaser. This Sunday, we're interviewing, for example, Sin Sage. She's an Avian Award winner. She's done well over 300 movies, and she specializes in girl on girl stuff. So we're really excited to have her on. But we also, and you know what? I'm going to just say it because she's like, we have the Meryl Streep of porn coming on that we're coordinating. We're talking to Nina Hartley about coming on. Which, I mean, people who hear her name, it's like, if you know it, it's like, it's the Meryl Streep of porn. So, super excited about her. And we also have, we have a number of friends who are comedians. So we're going to contact them, and we might have a couple celebrity guest appearances, assuming, their schedules can, work out with ours. Especially since my co-host is on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast. So we always have like a 3-hour time difference. So it's fun planning stuff. But yeah, we're definitely going to have interviews where we just talk about, specific topics, everything from autoerotica to foot fetishes to being a financial dominatrix. We're going to have specialists from specific fields. We definitely also want to talk to legal experts. I want to talk to people who are, what laws have affected pornography in that world. We want to talk to, what are best practices for, hypothetically, if you're going to be doing anal for the first time. We want to talk to, what are common misconceptions within specific worlds. Hell, I want to talk to a porn script writer. I kind of want to, know how, where do they get their ideas from? Maybe I'll want to, write a porn one day. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But
it's just a natural transition at this point. Yeah.
It really is. But we want to talk to all different types of people. We want to keep the show interesting. So our reviews are, of the porn, where sometimes it's going to be the two of us. Sometimes we'll bring on a third person. And then, like I said, we're going to have our interviews where we just discuss different topics. And again, we're going to keep it light. We're going to try keeping it educational. We're going to try keeping it a little bit dirty because that's kind of who we are. So
do you think you'll ever run out of topics to discuss on this show?
Cole, Rule 34. Come on.
So you mentioned bringing on like maybe legal experts or people who are, professionals in the field. Do you have any plans to talk about, I know that there's a lot of abuse, racism, sexism in the industry. Is that something that you plan to tackle and talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to talk about everything, the good, the bad. I've heard even, from specific actors that, in order to do like, an interracial scene, where maybe they're like a man is black and the woman is white, you get paid more. It's like, why is that? Racism. Mm-hmm. Because it is what it is. Hopefully I that's something I heard like a year ago from an actor friend of mine, but I don't know how much things have changed because things are always changing within the industry, so you got to keep up. Yeah, so we definitely want to tackle, the good, the bad, the ugly. We also want to make sure that I'm sure that some of the episodes that we're recording now in like a year or two, we're going to cringe just based on how much more information we know and, how we address certain topics. But we're really, Yvette and I are really open to learning and, approaching this from an open-minded view and trying to do it as respectfully to the industry as possible.
So, did you just have connections within the porn industry like from day one, or so you mentioned bringing on these pretty big names? Uh, did you? But you also mentioned you know comedians. You have these communities already established. So, was it just friend of a friend knew somebody? I'm sure that people just starting a podcast or maybe looking for tips on getting interviews with people like this would love to hear about that.
So funny enough, when we started this, I had zero connections originally into the porn industry, or so I thought. When you tell people you're doing a porn podcast, stuff comes out of the woodwork. Um, so Yvette and I, a little bit of background. So she is the public persona of SciBabe. So she has a number of connections as is, and me with some of the work I've done, I have a number of my own connections, but neither of us really thought we knew anyone at all in porn. She thought maybe she knows a scriptwriter or director or producer, but I didn't know any actors to begin with. I just started by emailing people. I found people who I wanted to talk to that I found were super interesting. I looked at their work and I just curated really thoughtful emails and saying, hey, I love X, Y, and Z that you've done. This is what I'm doing. This is how we're going to be promoting this. We would love to have you on our show. You're just the type of person. And and then being able to meet and form relationships with these people, some of them are now I would consider them really good friends, because we're just able to talk about a lot of this stuff openly and just have fun. And we found a lot of, commonalities. And they've also helped in introducing us to other people, which is really nice. So, reach out to people, email them, be genuine in, when you email them, don't just like spam a bunch of people is my advice, and form good, honest relationships. And, with those relationships, see if you could get a referral or two. That's what I would recommend if someone's just trying to start off, especially if they don't have any connections to begin with, because I didn't.
Yeah, for sure. So what is maybe when you look at like your 100th episode, what would you who's somebody that you would just like absolutely love to have on or dream of having on your show to talk about this particular topic?
Okay, I've already got this. Okay. Space porn, Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's all I'm saying. We need to do this.
I think people would listen.
Possibly.
That sounds great.
Or lab pornography with Bill Nye. It's going to be one of the two that, if they're listening right now, they're probably shaking their heads and saying, yeah, that's not happening. And watch 100 episodes. Once we hit the 100th episode, it's going to be, all right, Bill and Neil, who's coming on?
Yeah. That's awesome. So I also want to ask, just because we ask all of our creators this. So when you went through the process, and you just recently did this of like buying your gear and equipment and all that stuff, and looking into the editing and distribution, what type of gear did you end up with, and what was maybe the hardest part about that, and maybe some advice you could give to people just trying to get into it?
Yeah, totally. So you don't have to invest in a bunch of expensive gear in order to get this going. So my co-host and we use USB microphones. This is, I think, Audio Technica ATR 2100 USB microphone.
Yeah.
Costs $60, $70. You get a pop filter, you get a stand with it. Super simple, great quality. Have a good pair of headphones. I mean, I utilize my Apple earbuds, but I mean, just even like a pair of, you could find really good headphones for $40 to $60 on Amazon nowadays. You can also, I mean, what I do as well. So we have the two microphones. We use Zencaster for recording, but you can also use a program like Audacity. I use Audacity to clean up all of our episodes afterwards. Um, so you don't really need a lot. And then we just use Libsyn for all of our hosting needs. So Libsyn, we pay $20 a month. Zencaster, we pay another $20 a month. So that's $40 there. But, for between the hosting and recording. And then there's our microphones, and that's it. We don't do anything else. What I do, and this is just an extra expense that because I want good quality from our guests. A lot of our guests don't have microphones, so what I will do is I will contact the guests and say, if you don't already have a microphone, let me mail you one. And I've actually found there's a microphone on Amazon for like $10 that I just buy and ship to them. And then what's nice is then it's like, okay, it's guaranteed that instead of them using their Skull Candy like headphone microphone, which is going to be muted and it's not going to sound great, I can, they have a nice, reliable $10, microphone, which the audio quality is going to sound good. And if, you're curious what the audio quality is going to sound like, on our second episode where we discuss VR porn, our guest, Ella Darling, she's using a $10 microphone and she sounds pretty damn good. So,
Yeah.
and then you could clean up the audio in Audacity. So,
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to ship. So if you have guests that you're looking to interview on the show, ship them a mic. So that, yeah, I think that's awesome. And not a lot of people are doing that. And then you get a lot of poor audio quality, which is one of the number one reasons I'll turn off a podcast if it's hard to listen to. So yeah, it's great. Simple enough. So I know you have, before this, you already had a lot of things on your plate. You have a lot of different stuff going on. So what's
to
some
say
of the
the
other
least.
stuff? What are some of the other things that you do? Yeah. What's your day job? What are some of the other stuff that you do?
So other things I do. So I actually started an adult crayon company last year called Offensive Crayons. We've gotten viral a handful of times, so it's possible some of your viewers and listeners have heard of us. So we have some fantastic colors like boner pill blue and miscarriage maroon, and white is privilege. So we've been actually, and I kid you not when I say this, Amazon has, and I have this in writing from them, they have banned my product for offending children and Caucasians.
Wow. It sounds like you need to partner with like Cards Against Humanity, or you might have already thought about things like that, but that's awesome.
Yeah. So I sell that at offensivecrayons.com. And then I also just recently launched something exceptionally non-offensive, which is a line of space-themed bath bombs, each being like the 8 planets and the sun. Sorry, Pluto. So what can I say? I'm an adult who likes to say, on a nice Friday night, I just want to get cozy with a glass of wine, a bubble bath in Uranus.
Yeah. And some cream of wheat porn. Yeah.
Clearly, at least, if I want, at least we now know that woman doesn't have a gluten allergy. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so where can people find all these things? The offensive crayons, the bath bombs, and then obviously your podcast if people are interested and want to get into this.
Yeah, totally. So podcasts first, because yeah, why not? That's what we've been kind of talking about for like 95% of the time. So you can find us at Two Girls, One Mic, the Porncast. You can find us by searching in iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. Let's see, where else? Stitcher. We're pretty much where you can find all major podcasts. And I want to say the Porncast just because there's another one called Two Girls, One Mic, but they're not as exciting as we are. So they don't talk about porn. That's another huge differentiator. So so that's the first thing. We also have our website, Two Girls, One Mic, podcast.com. People can also, feel free to email us and find out about like how to support us via Patreon on there, because we actually have to pay for porn. But as far as the crayons and the bath bombs go, so offensivecrayons.com can give you a link to both. So yeah, just go there and you can find both the crayons and the bath bombs. Because what can I say? I just not only I want to offend people, but I enjoy, creating products that like the bath bombs that are geared specifically towards white people and me getting more money from white people. Because that's like the whitest thing you can imagine. I say this as someone who's pretty much a ghost. So
yeah, and people could find Yvette at SciBabe. I'm sure you could just Google it.
yeah,
I know I've seen it before this. So
mhm.
yeah,
So Yvette is scibabe.com. She's also SciBabe on Facebook, and you could find her at the SciBabe on Twitter, and you could find me as on Twitter as at Rational Blonde. Um, that's pretty much where you can find us. That's all of our stuff.
awesome, great. Well, thank you so much for for doing this, and I am going to be following up with you in about a year or two, whenever you are at episode 100. Looking forward to that Neil deGrasse Tyson Spaceballs interview.
There are a lot of space themed porn. I don't think you understand.
Yeah, I believe you, 100%. I believe you.
I believe Pornhub attempted to. They've been trying to collect funding. I think it's Pornhub where they want to do like anti-gravity sex, which I mean that's just a good cause for humanity.
Yeah, I would totally listen to a podcast about that too. So that's awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much. We'll stay in touch, and hopefully
Yeah.
people found some interesting stuff here. So thanks. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later, Cole. Bye.